Good morning, North America. Welcome to Church Talk Radio and all things church transformation. I'm your co-host, Dr. Bill Tenney Britton, in our studio in Columbia, Missouri, the heartland of the U.S. And as usual, I'm joined by my co-host, author and denominational leader, Dr. Kris Tenney Britton, the area minister of the Northeast area of the Christian Church Disciples of Christ of Mid-America. Try and say that 3 times fast. Good morning, Kris.
Good morning, good morning, good morning, and welcome to Church Talk Live.
Bill and Kris Tenney Britton here today to talk about hospitality like Disney. And that's a topic that I'm really excited about because, last year we took a family vacation, our 5-year-old grandson, to Disneyland in California. We had a great time. It was my second or third time there, not my first time as an adult. And we just had a most fabulous time. And one of the things that I really took an interest in was looking at how guest services was handled at Disneyland.
Yeah, well, that was fun, and I know we've been waiting for this episode, but it was really marked by seeing a few weeks ago in the Pilgrim Press catalog an advertisement for a book, and I came down to ask you if we could get that book for review, and you told me, is it this book? Which you'd already gotten. So the book is, I got to remember the name of the book.
Church Mouse, the Church Mouse, blah. Leadership Lessons from the Magical Kingdom by Christopher Perry.
Right, and so you've been able to get Kris with us in studio coinciding studio in a way, and he's in Alabama, but he's going to get to join us to give us some, I guess you might say, insider views about things that we've thought and we've suspected, and we really understand and know to be important for us as leaders in congregations.
Well, one thing about Christopher Perry is that he's a Disney-aholic, I guess, pastor of a church in Millbrook, Alabama. And this is the second church where he's really taken and applied the hospitality and leadership Disney principles to help turn around the church. But we're going to get to there in a minute.
Yeah.
I think that what's real important, though, is we talk about for a moment that hospitality is a key buzzword out there right now. That, almost everyone is talking about church hospitality.
Right, and hospitality can mean everything from offering cookies and coffee, or maybe just even coffee, between or after or before services, or it could be everything from how we make guests, everybody feel like a guest and very special from really kind of before they enter the parking lot until long after they leave.
Well, it's important to note that we've never found a church that didn't think they were the most friendliest church in town. And, and that's absolutely... Most churches have absolutely every right to believe that, but they're friendly to each other more than they're friendly to outsiders. And Disney has made it a passion to offer hospitality for helping the guests to really feel like guests. And again, we'll get to that in a minute. But one of the things that I want to talk about or mention is that hospitality is really a key cornerstone, if you will, of Disney. That it's said that the cast members, that's the people who work there at Disney, they get the most training on hospitality than any other topic.
Right, exactly. And, I was doing a little bit of research for this, and I saw several blogs and entries by people who've been interns there. And they come back over and over again into about that hospitality aspect. And that the reality is, whether you're an intern or a guest or somebody pretending to be part of Disney or the Disney culture or cast member, as the case may be, if you're mistaken for a cast member and you don't offer or extend that hospitality, that's a shame on Disney. So they want everything and everybody connected with them to be there and in place.
And in fact, Disney is so good at this that they offer leadership training courses for churches and businesses, corporations all over. Disney University.
Exactly. And some of our tips at the end of this program are going to share, will be part of what we've learned in that.
All right. Well, I think it's time to get a hold of Kris,
and
we're going to go online and grab Kris, Christopher Perry, who joins us today from
Millbrook. It's a community just north of Montgomery.
Hey, welcome to our show, Christopher.
Hi, Kris.
So, Christopher, tell us about your obsession with Disney. How did you come across it? How did you come about it? And just tell us a bit about yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. I've been a pastor now since 1994, elder in the United Methodist Church. I have served all kinds of churches, church plants and large churches, small churches, country churches. The church I'm currently at now, we did a complete almost restart. It was a dying church. This is a historic building built in 1845, but the church was about ready to close, and so sent here to try to turn it around and breathe new life and see if God could do an Ezekiel moment in our lives, and He certainly has here. But in the midst of that, leadership has always been a fascination. And for me, I like to look at the people who do leadership the best. I feel you can learn, not necessarily to copy, because their situation is not my situation, but I believe that if you study the great leaders, there are principles you can learn. And Disney has been one of those fascinations. It just started with my wife and I loving to watch Disney movies, and then I began to get fascinated with the Disney culture, and made some contacts in the leadership world through some of the Disney leaders, and got a little bit more immersed in it. So yeah, I guess it's become a bit of an obsession. I'm a Disney-holic now.
So Kris, how does the Be Our Guest ethos at Disney contrast with normal church or usual church hospitality?
At the Walt Disney World Resort, the Florida resort specifically, every person at one of the resorts, the rooms, the hotels, for lack of a better word, is taught to say "Welcome home" to guests as they arrive back at the resort. So whether it's the security guard at the gate or the cast member that you meet at the front desk, they all say "Welcome home" because they want you to feel like this is your home and that you truly have come home. The Be Our Guest mantra is absolutely intentionally drilled into the Disney cast members. Now, for our audience who aren't Disney-holics, they don't call their staff employees. They call them cast members because they believe that everybody they have is on stage, performing a role, creating part of the magical experience. So that's what I mean when I say cast member. But they have picked up, Be Our Guest comes from the Disney movie Beauty and the Beast, which was a very popular song as part of that movie, and they made use of it in their marketing. And where it differs, I think, from normal church hospitality is that Disney wants every person to come on their property to feel like an honored guest, that you aren't there as a commodity. You're not there as someone that they are looking to bilk money out of. You're not there as someone that they just want to use and send on your way. In other words, trying to get rid of the cattle mentality that you so often feel in an amusement park kind of environment. And so they go out of their way to make sure that people feel like they are truly an honored guest. In fact, they don't refer to people who come to property as visitors or tourists, or they always say guests. In the church, I think we have a tendency to view visitors as a commodity, as a potential giving movement, as a potential member, as a potential somebody who can do something for us, rather than treating them as if we are so honored that they would grace us with their presence that day. I think in terms of how would we react if Jesus Christ walked in, we would fall down on our face and trip over ourselves trying to serve Him and make Him feel like the honored guest He certainly would be. And yet when Christ says, if you've done it to the least of these, you've done it to me. So I think we should go out of our way to treat every person who comes through our doors as if we are honored beyond honor to have them in our presence that day.
You know, I had an experience in Atlanta quite a few years ago where I went to a church that was predominantly African American. In fact, there are only 2 non-African Americans in the congregation. That was me and somebody who was obvious on prison release because he had an orange prison suit on there that day. Anyways, went there with some friends to worship. We were worshiping, and during the, quote, greeting time, unquote.
Yeah, which everyone loves.
Right. This woman in front of me turned around, stuck out her hand, and she said, "Welcome to your Father's house." And then she gave me a hug. I cannot tell you just how special and wonderful I felt and how moved I was.
Yeah, but it's one thing to look at the big welcome.
Right.
But what about the details? Details are, well, they say the devil's in the details, and Disney takes those details very, very seriously. In fact, those who clean up, they call mouse keepers, those who, go around and, pick up the trash, although everyone picks up trash.
Sure.
But, those who are tasked with that, and, if you're in the Disney resort, they change sheets and all that. Those are the mouse keepers, and they're very, very particular about the details. Disney, it takes these details very seriously, and they have this mantra, if you will, is the bump in the lamp. Remember the bump in the lamp. And that comes from, well, here, I'll tell you what. Kris, you tell us about the bump in the lamp and the details and how Disney puts it all together.
Sure. The bump the lamp mantra that Disney has comes from their movie Who Framed Roger Rabbit, which was a very funny movie. It came out a few years ago. It was really a landmark film in that Disney was combining for the first time since Song of the South, and never to this level, live animation, live acting with animation. And you had these cartoon characters being brought into the real world. Well, there's a scene where Roger Rabbit has handcuffed himself to our hero, Eddie, and Roger is a cartoon. And Eddie is trying to get the handcuffs off of he and Roger, because Roger did it because he thought it was funny. And he grabs Roger by the ears and he swings him around. And as he swings him around, he bumps the lamp that is in the room. In bumping that lamp, the lamp starts to swing wildly. Now, in doing that, that meant the animators had to go through and they had to make every shadow and every light texture perfect on Roger. And it created a huge amount of headaches and detail that was not necessary to the film. And in fact, most people probably never even noticed that scene in terms of thinking of the effort it took the animators to get it to look right with that lamp swinging around.
And if they hadn't been paying attention to those details, everybody would have noticed.
Exactly. So you never notice it because they did it right, but if they hadn't have done it right, you would have noticed. And so that's the details that Disney really prides themselves in, is doing things that nobody else notices. For instance, the managers will, if they're trying to look for things, and they encourage all the cast members to do this, they will get down on their knees on the sidewalk to look at everything from a child's perspective, to make sure that there's nothing at a child's eye level that they're missing while they're standing up at an adult's eye level. They make sure that every ride is not just a ride, but it's themed down to the smallest detail. And they pride themselves on not missing any details on their ride that might take you out of the magical experience. And one of the greatest examples, if you go to the Animal Kingdom park that's in the Magic Kingdom, there was a cell phone tower that could be seen from the property. And Disney got permission and went through and actually completely transformed this cell phone tower to look like a giant tree, so that unless you know it's there, you'll never know a cell phone tower can be seen from the property, because they don't want you taken out of the experience. So that's part of the details. Now you transfer that to the church. Too often we get so used to our facilities looking the way they look, things being where they're at, that we don't intentionally think about how do we look at this from a guest's perspective, a first-time visitor's perspective. Do we notice the paint is chipped? Do we notice when do we make sure that the bathrooms are completely stocked? But even beyond that, do we make sure that there's some mints in the bathroom as a nice little extra detail? Do we make sure that the signage is very clear and properly marked? Too often in the church, we just assume people will find their way, or that they don't need the extra touch. And Disney never takes for granted that folks want that extra touch. It's part of making them feel like a guest.
Yeah, Kris, one of the details that I do know is that every 15 feet, I think it's 15 feet, they have a trash container, so that, through research they discovered that people won't walk more than 15 feet to drop trash into the trash bin. So, every 15 feet throughout Disney, there's these trash cans.
Exactly, exactly. And if there ever is a piece of trash dropped on Main Street or anywhere else, I guarantee it won't be there more than 60 seconds. Because I mean, I actually was in the park once when Bob Iger, who was the CEO of Disney at the time, was walking down Main Street. He saw a piece of trash. He went out of his way to go pick it up and put it in the trash can. Everybody does that. No matter what your level in the Disney Corporation, everybody takes responsibility for maintaining the details.
So leaders must model the hospitality. Yeah, exactly. So everything from again, we're at churches all the time, and that means everything from picking up extraneous paper towels and toilet paper on the floors in the bathrooms during the week, or even during the services, picking up the cans that are that got thrown onto our front yards.
Well, one of the things I think of in churches is, we all as members go in and we wash our hands after we go to the restroom, I hope. And, one of the things that I see so often is that, as members, we feel entitled. And so if the counter or the sink isn't exactly in good shape, we just, we'll have to tell the custodian, take some paper and wipe it down.
Right.
You're responsible. We're all responsible.
Right.
And, I don't know how many times I've seen leaders who are not modeling this kind of stuff, say, hey, such and such needs to get done, when they could have done it right there and modeled this kind of hospitality, leadership, and attention to the details.
Right. The toilet doesn't flush. You need to go find somebody who's going to make sure that that's taken care of. Right.
Exactly.
Right then and there. We have a sign that one of our former members made for us when we were doing house church. In fact, all house church pastors had one of these, and it says, "It's not my house; it's God's house." It's not.
It's not my house. It's my Father's house.
Okay. All right. Well, okay. My Father's house.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. But same thing. And that's the point I'm trying to make here, or trying to get across, is that we go in there and we think, oh, I'm at church. Even when we're a leader, I'm at church, or I'm at the church, or I'm a leader of the church. Instead of saying, wow, this is God's house. This is our Father's house. Wow, I'm here today, and I get to help take care of that house.
Right. Exactly. So,
Right?
So I guess, I just want to jump into that, pull into those mousekeeper pieces again, is what is the difference between, a cast member, and mousekeepers, of course, is part of those cast members, but a cast member and a church member?
Usually when I hear the term member of something, I think in terms, a church member. I think too often we have treated the church almost like a country club. I come down front, I sign the paper, I shake the preacher's hand, I pay my dues, and now I can use it as I want to, and I can be involved as I want to. That's often a common perception that I've seen. For the cast members at Disney, they have a program that they call Traditions. That is their training program that every cast member goes through, no matter what their role is. And they are trained to understand the story and the mission of the Disney park. Their mission is to make people happy. Now, they have a little bit longer mission statement, that not much longer, but a little bit. But every person is told their mission is to make people happy, and every one of them has a role in performing that mission, and it is drilled into them what their role is. Now, whether they are a character, whether they are a performer in one of the shows, whether they're a cashier, whether they're a street cleaner, whether they're a vendor, it doesn't matter. Every single one, even if they're a bean counter in an office somewhere, every one of them understands their mission is to make people happy, and they go out of their way to fulfill that mission. They are taught to exceed expectations, and that's another mantra that Disney has. Exceed the guests' expectations in fulfilling your role. Just a great example, a very touching moment that I saw. I saw a little girl one time crying because she really wanted a balloon. She was probably 3 or 4 years old, and it was near the end of the day. The dad had spent all the cash he brought with him, didn't have any more, and he said, I'm sorry, honey, maybe another time we'll get you a balloon. The cast member was standing right there beside her, and she reached up, took the balloon, gave it to the little girl, and said, Mickey wants you to have this. And the little girl just, broke out into this huge smile. That's a cast member, not an employee. That's not somebody who is just fulfilling a paycheck. That's someone living out the mission of making people happy. And giving away a balloon is actually something the Disney Corporation encourages. They have a process. They call it magic moments, and they encourage people to do this. And I've thought so often, what if we in the church, instead of viewing this as a membership where I pay my dues and I use the church, in other words, what do I get out of it? Instead, we view ourselves as being on mission, and that I have a vital part to play in fulfilling the mission of the kingdom of God, and I go beyond expectations in fulfilling my role.
Kris, one of the things that I do is I work with a lot of unchurched folks. I try to spend as much time with unchurched rather than church folks because the culture is changing all the time. And if I'm hanging out with church folks, the reality is that culture changes much more slowly. And one of the things that I've noticed in conversations with unchurched folks is that they have pretty low expectations of what the church is all about. They'll go to church, and what they'll so often find is, yep, that's what I expected. That's exactly what I thought church would be like, that it was, boring or irrelevant, or I didn't feel welcome, or I didn't understand it, or, people may have welcomed me in, but it went right over my head.
Yeah, but when they tell people, they won't tell you the pre-but, right? They won't tell you, oh, well, people welcome me in, but they're going to go out and talk about all the post-but stuff.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly. And they just don't have
right.
an experience. And really, you think about, as we talk about this experience, they haven't had an experience of the holy, of God, of the if you will, the magic kingdom. So, Kris, how can a church develop, if you will, a magical kingdom culture, or for those who don't like the word magic, a kingdom culture? How do we as leaders model that, get that on the table, and develop that kind of a culture?
The real key to it, to sum it up, is intentionality. That's the one key above all, and that's where Disney excels. Disney does nothing without being extremely intentional. They don't just open up the gates in the morning and say, well, I hope this works. They don't just try a new program. They don't come up with a new ride idea or experience idea. They are so intentional about every experience they want the guests to have. And I think that's where we as the church fail sometimes, is lack of intentionality. We come up with a great ministry idea and we just implement it. But we forget to think, well, how does this fit with the overall mission? And how do we really get this to create the effect we're looking for? Whether it's to make people feel welcome in a culture of hospitality, whether it's to bring people into a relationship with Jesus Christ, whether it's to help them discover their spiritual gifts, whatever it is we're trying to accomplish to advance the kingdom. And so if I had to sum it up in one word, I would say be intentional about everything you do. You cannot be overly intentional. My wife says I've become obsessed with details, and I take that as a compliment. I have become obsessive compulsive because I think every little detail, I don't know which of those details is going to make the difference in connecting somebody with God.
You just never know what detail is going to jump out at someone. One of the things that we found in literally hundreds of interviews is that the number one thing people talk about when they leave church, unchurched people talk about on their first time visit to church, is if the bathrooms were under par. That's the first thing they'll talk about. They won't talk about the sermon. They won't talk about the music. If the bathrooms are under par, that's the first thing they talk about. And conversely, if the bathrooms are fabulous, believe it or not, this is done. We've done major research on this. If the bathrooms are fabulous, not just okay, but over the top, like a bride's room and whatnot, they'll talk about how cool the bathrooms were before they talk about the worship service.
It's true.
It's really wild, but it's those little details that people catch up to. And the nursery is another one.
Right, I was going to say, whoa.
The nursery, you've got to be hot on the details of the nursery. One of the things that we've done is we've developed this hospitality DVD set that covers these details. There's 24 sessions that walks you through every permeation, if you will, of what's going on or how to raise your hospitality level to the highest height. So, we just want to let you know that that's available.
Put a little plug out there.
That's right. Christopher, thank you so much
Very
for joining
much.
us.
What a joy.
Yep, and we look forward to reading the article you're preparing for Net Results Magazine.
Yes.
And for having conversations further.
Well, thank you so much. My pleasure, and thank you for having me.
As I said at the top of this program, I did some research coming into this. And one of the quotes I found on there is from Marty Sklar, who is the vice chairman and principal creative executive for Walt Disney Imagineering.
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 I love it.
I know, I love it too. Oh, wow. Okay, so what he says, from the beginning, starting with Walt Disney, we've had 5 things that make me proud to be part of this company. High quality products, optimism for the future, great storytelling, an emphasis on family entertainment and great talent, and passion and dedication from our cast members. Not merely like we do in the church, passion and dedication for our church members, but from our cast members. And it made me think, imagine, speaking of Imagineering, imagine what our congregations and the church, the reputation of the church, Big C Church, might be if we could make a commitment to and then organize for high quality products.
I think of products at a church, of course, I think of the worship service.
Yeah.
And the nursery and all those details, the Christian education program, children, youth,
ministries, missions.
Right, exactly. They're all high quality, but it goes beyond just that, and it goes to: do you have a coffee bar, if you will? Are you serving coffee? And if you are you serving premium coffee or just whatever's cheap?
I have to tell you, I got to be this last weekend in the back end of the children's area at a church in Columbia, Missouri, with our grandson and one of our grandsons, and they have, it's like a little diner deal in the back that's kid size, complete with a counter and everything. And I asked our daughter Shannon, who was there, I was with, and I said, what on earth is that? And it was just, I couldn't get past it. And she says, oh yeah, that's, sometimes they'll have snacks there, and that's where I'm going, that is the coolest deal. I mean, it was quality. It was an experience, a high quality experience.
Yeah, very cool. Okay.
Okay.
The second thing is
So
optimism for the future.
yeah, we're people of hope.
Well, we're supposed to be.
Hello. So what if we did that? It's not what is that? Pollyanna. It's not pie in the sky by and by, but it's not merely hope. It's optimism.
Well, and I want to point out that so often we go to churches and maybe they're having some financial issues, whatever, and somehow they seem to think that by telling people how bad it is and how they need to give more because it's bad or whatever, or how bad the economic crisis is and so on. Folks, optimism. Now that's not blowing smoke, and just making it seem like you say Pollyanna, but it is about we are people of hope, and people give to vision and mission. They very rarely give to pad the budget.
Well, the opposite of optimism is pessimism. But it's not only about pessimism, because a lot of people say, well, we're not pessimistic. But no, we're skeptical and we're cynical, and they have no places in our congregations.
All right. Third piece is great storytelling, and I want to say that it's when Disney says storytelling, they're not talking about sermonizing. As Christopher pointed out, and his book points out, the difference between an amusement park and Disney, where they build this whole experience. What would it be like if we created an experience in our storytelling where we didn't just sit passively, but it was everything imbued us?
Well, but I want to go even farther than that, because I'm working on those words. I want to go further than that, because often when we think about the storytelling, we're only thinking about the sermon.
Right.
And it's more than the sermon. It's not merely sharing what God has done or trying to make what God has done relevant for today, but it's about sharing our current stories and pointing out, if you will, testimonies. You can do that different ways in your storytelling, though. It's about pointing out what God is doing personally, individually, and collectively in our midst.
It's in the now. It's the now.
We have to show people where God is moving and point that out, because we just don't see it anymore.
Right. Okay. Well, that moves right into inspiring joy and helping people experience and explore their own talents, their spiritual gifts, their passions. You know, I see so many churches doing spiritual gift inventories, and they go, oh, wow, you know, they're real excited about it, but then there's nothing there. You know, okay, great, I got a list of talent. How do I put those into play? What are my passions? How do I get people going? And that's, you know, Disney is very good at helping place people where they need to be, where they will excel.
Can you imagine somebody coming in and saying, oh, could you imagine me coming in and saying, I want to be Snow White. Never mind that I don't have the voice. Never mind that I don't look anything like Snow White, no matter how much makeup or wigging you put onto me. And them saying, okay, Kris, we know you've always wanted to be Snow White all your life. We'll make that happen. No, they're going to look and they're going to say, well, what are you really good at? You know, like, what are your, here, let's look at that. Let's, in our church language, use a gifts inventory and see, and let's talk about how now you can connect.
Right.
Rather than going, Ollie, we need Snow White, and taking whoever comes. That's crazy.
There you are. All right,
Okay.
and then finally is expecting passion from our congregation, from our leaders, and from our staff.
And not just passion, Sklar says. It's not just about passion. It's about dedication. You know, it's one thing to bring your passion and then to go with it. A lot of people show up with passion that's pretty self-centered these days and egotistical. And we, again, in the church, we jump on that. We're like, yeah, you know, they bring all the excitement. The problem is there isn't a dedication there. And they'll go and take the passion with them. And there's been no helping to imbue.
Well, and you have to connect passion with ministry and life change.
Right.
That it's one thing to have a passion to be on the stage so you can, you know, show everyone how wonderful you are. It's a whole other thing to have passion to be on the stage to change lives.
Yeah.
You know, so there's a huge difference.
Well, hopefully we haven't scared you, but maybe in some way we've inspired you to think about how you could take Disney hospitality seriously. And the questions on the handout that you can download for this episode.
Right. Okay, now we are out of time. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you next week.
Have a great week.